In fact, today I was supposed to give this talk, but just now I explain why I didn't give that talk. I was supposed to talk about Theravada Buddhism, traditional Buddhism and original Buddhism. Many people, they come into Theravada Buddhism and they think that Theravada Buddhism is very pure. Very pure. And whatever is taught in Theravada Buddhism is all the words of the Buddha. When I first came to Theravada Buddhism, I also thought like that. And when I investigated further, then I understood that there is a difference between traditional Buddhism and original Buddhism. As I said just now, original Buddhism, which was discussed by the 500 Arahants at the first Sangha Council, consisted only of 4 books. And whereas the Abhidhamma and the commentaries and sub-commentaries and the Khuddaka Nikaya, they came later. But we can accept those things that are consistent with the 4 Nikayas. Whatever is said in the other books. If it is consistent with the 4 Nikayas, we accept them. But if they are not consistent, then we follow the Buddha's advice, throw it out. So, many people, because they have been taught by many monks who believe these other books to be the words of the Buddha, they also believe that these words are original words of the Buddha. But as I said just now, you need to investigate a lot before you know that some of these things cannot be accepted. But we don't blame these monks in a sense that come from these traditional Buddhist countries for teaching these things, because if you can know the reason. Many of these monks, they come into monkhood at the age of 12, 10 years old, they become a novice monk. And from there, they start reciting all the things that they are told to recite. They recite the Jataka tales and all the rest. And so by the time they become very respected monks, maybe they are 60 years old. And for 50 years, they have been reciting all these books, and taking them to be the words of the Buddha. And because nobody argued with them, in their country, everybody accepted as the word of the Buddha. And nobody told them that it's not the words of the Buddha, so they just accept it. Abhidhamma and all that. But lucky, for a person like me, I was not a monk at the age of 10 years old. At the age of 35, I became a monk. And because I suffered disappointment, disillusionment and all these things, I become very skeptical. I become very wary of what are called masters. Some people call them, they are masters such and such, teachers such and such. And because of my bad experience, I learned to be very cautious and to check with the original words of the Buddha. And when I checked, I found there are discrepancies which should not be there. And very serious discrepancies. For example, many of you won't know many of these things unless, because nobody tells you. And nobody tells you because very few people go and do research in this kind of things. For example, Abhidhamma is one of them. Abhidhamma is one of those books that are those set of books that are controversial. Even many Theravada monks don't accept these Abhidhamma books. There are certain monks that accept. And now I will tell you some of the reasons why some monks don't accept. Just to let you know. But I don't say that Abhidhamma is false. Abhidhamma is not the writings of the Buddha. That I am not qualified to say because I was not there when the books were written down. All I can say is, when I compare it with the original 4 Nikayas, certain contradictions appear which are serious enough to be suspicious. For example, one of the teachings in Abhidhamma is that when you attain path, you must attain fruition immediately. There's one moment a person attains Aryan path, the next moment he attains fruition already. Now there's about 3 suttas or 4 suttas in the original Nikayas that say contrary to this. One is in Samyutta Nikaya, I think 25.1, which says that when a person enters the stream, attains the first path, then the Buddha said, for sure, before he dies, he will attain fruition. Before he dies, he must attain fruition. But the Buddha never said when. That means different person can be different, Might be one moment, might be 1 year, might be 10 years. There's one sutta. And there's another sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, I think 142, Dakkhina Vibhanga Sutta, where the Buddha said, talk about the merit from giving to individuals. He said the highest merit you can give to an individual is to give to a Sammasambuddha. Second is a Pachika Buddha, then Arahant, then a person who has attained the 4th path, then Anagami, meaning 3rd fruition, then a person who has attained the 3rd fruition, then Sakadagami you can give. You can also give to a second path person, then a 1st fruition person, or you can also give to a 1st path person. That means the Buddha talked about 8 individuals, When he talked about Arya, the Buddha always mentioned there are 8 individuals. He didn't say there are 4 individuals. The fact that you can give dana, you can give something to a path attainer, means that he exists not for one moment, exists. There's another sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya where the Buddha talked about 3 types of Arya. One is Kaya Sakin, body witness. One is Ditti Pato, view attainer. Then there is one Saddha Vimutto, a faith released person. Now 3 disciples of the Buddha were arguing about these 3 types of Arya. Which one is better? Then one disciple of the Buddha said, number 1 is better. Another said number 2 is better. Another said number 3 is better. So they came and asked the Buddha, just now you're arguing about this, which one is better? Then asked the Buddha, which one is better? Buddha said, very hard to say straight away which one is better. The Buddha said, number 1 might be a Sakadagami, 2nd fruition person. Might be Anagami, a non-returner. It might also be a 4th path attainer, not Arahant, 4th path attainer. And then the Buddha said, number 2 person might also be a Sakadagami, might also be Anagami, might also be a 4th path attainer. And said, same with number 3. So from here, you find actually the 4th path attainer exists, not just for one moment. So this is one of the things that you find contradiction between the Nikayas and the Abhidhamma. Another one is in the Abhidhamma they talk about Bhavanga state. In the Nikayas, the Buddha talked about 6 consciousness, not more than 6 consciousness. It's only in the Mahayana books they talk about the 7th and the 8th consciousness. But in the Abhidhamma, they talk about the Bhavanga consciousness. Now in the Nikayas, the Buddha said that consciousness does not exist by itself. It must have a reason a support to cause it to exist. Now in the case of the sixth consciousness, seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling, tasting, touch consciousness and thinking consciousness, the reason for these to exist, the seeing consciousness is because a form appears before the eyes. You must have a form, something to see, and then you have a good eye. Because of these two, the seeing consciousness arises. And then if you pay attention, there is contact of these three, and you see. So the same with the hearing consciousness. A sound must come, then only the hearing consciousness can arise. Otherwise, the hearing consciousness cannot arise. It is like this kind of sutta that we find not only problem with Abhidhamma, also problem with certain Mahayana sutras, like the Surangama Sutra, Ling Yam King. The Surangama Sutra, I talk about Kuan Yin Bodhisattva contemplating the nature of sound in the absence of sound. Not hearing sound, He's hearing in the absence of sound, hearing the hearing nature. Which, when we compare with the four Nikayas, it's impossible for the hearing consciousness to arise. Some other consciousness must arise, because there is no condition for the hearing consciousness to arise, because there is no sound. So when you come back to Abhidhamma, they say that the Bhavanga consciousness takes for its object the Chutti Chitta, the last consciousness of the previous life. So what they are saying, in fact, is that the last consciousness of the previous life, causes the Bhavanga consciousness of the next life to appear. Now if you understand Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, you cannot accept this. Because the principle of Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, is what? Is this being that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. This ceasing, that comes to cease. With the ceasing of this, that ceases. That is the principle of Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination. In other words, something ceases, something else must cease. Something arises, something else arises. So, with the ceasing of the last consciousness, the Chutti Chitta of the previous life, some other conditions must cease, Now what they are saying is that with the ceasing of the last consciousness of the previous life, another consciousness arises, which they call Bhavanga state. This is contradictory to Paticca Samuppada. How can something cease and something arise? Impossible. This is another serious thing that we find about this Abhidhamma. And then, like just now, the sutta I mentioned, where the Buddha said, the 5 types of person that must attain parinibbana here in the human plane. One of them is the Arahant. That means, an Arahant can only be a human being. That's what it means, this sutta. An Arahant can only be a human being. And in the Abhidhamma, they said that when the Buddha taught the Abhidhamma, 800 million devas became Arahant. If you don't notice this type of sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Tens, you won't realize that this is a contradiction. It's only when you understand this type of sutta where the Buddha says, all Arahants enter parinibbana here on the human plane as a human being. Then you cannot accept how can 800 million devas become Arahant. Devas, as I said just now, actually is a holiday. They are so happy, so long life, they cannot see dukkha. They cannot see dukkha. So where is there any incentive to struggle hard? They are only willing to come and listen to some sutta lah. After that they go and play and enjoy. Some of them, because of past life, they want to do a bit of meditation. But they are not willing to renounce. They are not willing to struggle very hard. Even surprisingly, even the anagami doesn't struggle to become an arahant. He just wait for his time and enter parinibbana in the Suddhabhavasa abode. So you see, if devas can become arahant so easy, Buddha won't come to earth. Better go to and taught the devas.